Hello, and after a pause in podcasting, we're back. The Middlemen podcast, revamped, as both myself, Noah Abrahams, and the Welsh wizard himself, Max Taylor, bringing you up to date with the latest in sport from our perspective as young journalists with big dreams. So why has it been so long? Well, we've both had very busy summers. Max covering the Commonwealth Games, and for me, a tour of America that's really changed my perspective on sport and life in general. Max, I missed that Welsh accent of yours. So kick us off. How were the Commonwealth Games?
Has returned, and it's not about to go anywhere anytime soon. It's back for the next half hour for every week for the foreseeable future. Yeah, mate, so good to hear about your summer and have the catch up earlier. Just doing bucket list stuff, that is bucket list material, touring America. But the Commonwealth Games for myself, brilliant time. Literally bucket list stuff for me as well, for in terms of a journalist perspective. Catching up with a couple of lads that I used to train with as well, that have now become medalists in that competition. And, we were talking about just maturing, and, you kind of realize that at that point, because last time I saw these two boys, we were both, we both had the same dreams, we're both applying ourselves for it. And over time, mine has changed, but I still stuck with boxing, just in an academic way, So it was like almost a full circle moment, just in a different way, Like, I didn't see these guys in the finals because I was competing. I saw them on the other side of the mix zone, but to still be involved and to still see them and to see the Croft twins succeed, highlight of my time there. I was a nervous wreck in the Tribune watching them fight, but Team Wales did fantastically. It was a absolute honor to report on them and report on all the other nations there. That's not just in boxing as well. I covered a bit of weightlifting and badminton in the early stages of the games. Bit of fun, it's different. Obviously, I went there with the mindset that I just want to do this one sport, but it's always good to be more than one dimensional, and that's what I did with my sport coverage. So yeah, honestly, a very memorable time, mate. I'll remember it until my dying days.
I bet you will. I mean, I always find when you go to any stadia or tournament, when you know someone there, especially when you know someone competing or managing, if it's football, it makes it so much easier to go and to feel more comfortable as well. I feel like you feel more, as a journalist, comfortable around the athletes, obviously, when you know them. Who were they? Who were the boxers? Who were they?
So it's Johan and Garen Croft, the Croft twins from Team Wales. They've had a hell of a year this year. A career-defining one for them. They got signed up. They got the call up to Team GB earlier this year. They went into the European Championships, both just come shy of gold there. I think Johan got silver and Garen got bronze, and then later, then at the Commonwealth Games, Johan landed a gold medal and Garen got a bronze. So yeah, they fight in what are their divisions now? Welterweight. Johan's a welterweight, okay, and Garen's a light middleweight. So they are literally twins in every aspect, even their weight. But obviously, they didn't want to come in each other's bracket anytime soon and have to fight the other one for a medal. I think they separated there, but the pair of them got medals, and that was just a summary of the Team Wales performance in the boxing. I think they got semi-finalists. I might correct that stat, but they had a record-breaking performance in those games. So fair play to them. Absolute congratulations. The talent that is coming out of that pool right now is fantastic. So yeah, shout out to them. And I know what you're saying about how it kind of eases you, but to be honest, because I hadn't seen either of the lads in 6 years, right? 6 long
time.
Years. I was, yeah. Like, we have obviously, we've become men in that time.
Yeah.
So I was actually more nervous than I was reassured, because I was like, I don't even think, like, because these are busy boys. Do you know what I mean? They've got a lot of people, a lot of journalists through their careers. So I was like, they might not even remember me here. Like, I might, I grew a goatee in that
but
time.
They did.
I might have looked a bit
they?
different. Yeah, straight away they said hi, Max. So I was like,
See,
oof, okay, that's all my apprehension over.
he's that memorable that even 6 years later with a goatee, you don't forget Max Taylor. But I know what it's like. I know what you mean when you go to a tournament and there are people there who you just know and you just click with, and it really makes it so special. And you do meet incredible people at these tournaments. Covering the boxing with you for Team GB, I remember just sitting next to journalists who I'd heard growing up, Mike Costello, doing football commentary and sitting next to Guy Mowbray in a press box, or John Murray. And these are the guys you listen to and you grow up listening to or watching on TV. And all of a sudden you're working alongside them. I know you had the same with Buncey and a few others there. Who else did you meet? Who was the best person you met?
Oh, best person. I think that is a tough one. Because there was so many ex-pro boxers, and as you said, you mentioned, really influential, big time journalists there, especially in the boxing game. I had Buncey behind me. Costello wasn't there, or from what I seen, he wasn't there when I was there. But I had Barry Jones to the left of me as well, doing his commentary as he used to do a lot of on BT. And I think he's a great commentator, not just with the Welsh bias here, but yeah, I think he's great on the mic. Very very neutral down the line, which is more rare than you would imagine in boxing.
In boxing, yeah.
But
everyone has an opinion in boxing.
Exactly, and some pundits can come on, and because they've been like employed by the broadcaster who's broadcasting the home show, some pundits like to swing towards the home fighter in a 50-50 fight. Barry just doesn't take to that. So I know he would have been calling it as he's seen it and having no favor for the home nations. Team Wales is a bit hard for him, isn't it? But I think everybody who was tuning in there would have understood that. But yeah, I had him to the left of me, and then I had the dynamic duo of Ron McIntosh and Richie Woodall, who were next to Buncey and the row above me. So I was just looking around, and as a boxing journalist and a fan, and just seeing all these big names. But it's tough as well because I never really know how to approach these guys, and like obviously I do, but
It's
in
hard.
the context of they're there to do a job. Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard to judge when you approach someone like Steve Bunce or whoever it is sitting on that row above you, and you'll be on that row one day, Max. And I think we both will be eventually. And it's hard to judge when you approach someone. And people ask me this a lot in a press box. Do you go up to? I used to work a lot with Chris Kamara during lockdown and COVID, and when I covered Barnsley and Sheffield Wednesday, and that was his patch as well. And people always used to say to me, "Do you speak to him?" And you do and you don't. You speak to them in passing. Like, oddly enough, I probably had the best conversations with Chris Kamara just going to the loo, and he was standing next to me, and you have a chat with him, washing your hands or on your way in and way out, and whatever. And that's when you speak to people most, I find, because otherwise you're working. But in the press box last night, I was at Hillsborough, and you catch up with people whilst you're stuffing your face with a free pie. So that's when you do it. But I know completely what you mean in terms of meeting these amazing people. And the one question I have for you is, what's the best story from covering the Commonwealth Games? Give us a story from behind the scenes or something that happened. What's the most memorable moment from covering the games?
Oh, it's hard because I kind of had two kind of lives in the games. Like obviously being there and doing my work for it and reporting there, and then also coming back to the hotel, seeing all of our course mates, all of our old course mates now,
Yeah.
Who we were in the hotel with. So we had some funny times there. We had this drunk woman come up to us because we're staying at like this hotel, which was also like a local pub as well, and she has the most like Birmingham accent. I think we were in Stetchford at the time.
That's hilarious.
And she was like, yeah, she had the most Birmingham accent, and we with one act Northern Irish. And for some reason, like, I don't know how much alcohol she must have had, but she just come up to the table claiming she was Northern Irish. All she had to do was speak for us to understand that she wasn't, but she was claiming it. And then, like, it's one of those, isn't it? You get just like a middle-aged person roll up to your table, absolutely like trolleyed,
Of course.
and they just drone on forever about random waffle.
Yeah, the beauties.
It's just one of those, isn't it? You kind of, yeah, you keep them entertained. And yeah, we had a good laugh there. And I think she told us, I can't even remember. Like, I've got a video on my phone, and I'm just like acting overly surprised, and it's really encouraging her to carry on with the story. But I did not know what she was going on about.
Well, I tell you what, send me that video and I'll put it on the end of the podcast. And right at the end of the podcast, if you're listening now, wait till the end. Wait till the end, and we'll get that video on the end of the poddy. And I think that's just what happens when you're in Brum, Max. I think that's just what you can expect. But look, I'm really proud of you, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm seriously so proud of you. I think what you've done is incredible, and with Cardiff Met as well, and you do your stuff there, and like you're a media intern, and I mean, you're at the Welsh Sports Hall of Fames last night. It's just, I honestly, unreal what you're doing. So, yeah, I think you should be really proud of yourself, mate.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. You know, not to get all sloppy on our first episode back, but I tell everybody this who I interact with when we're talking about our podcast or just talking about you in general, is like, I wouldn't be able to maintain this ambition and what I do without you, because have always just been a top tier influence for me, isn't it? Like, with what you were doing from day one of meeting you, bro. Fully day one of meeting you, I just knew the energy. You know when someone is like on the same path as you, and has the same mindset as you, and wants that same end goal. And then when the personalities click as well, mate, it's just, do you know what I mean? How can you not do a podcast with them?
I love it. I love it. And I love our podcast, and
words, mate.
Massive love for you. And when you're down in Boreham Wood, like this is what you're listening to here is a catch up as well. Like, Max and I haven't caught up with each other properly in such a long time. So listen, if anyone fancies a pint down in Boreham Wood, come join Max and I, and we'll get you on the house.
Come to the Wellington.
The Wellington, that's our local, and we'll sort it out. But yeah, you're listening to the next big thing in boxing here. And speaking of boxing, let's get into it. And I think Canelo Alvarez is the only place to start. So we'll look back at the weekend before we look forward to next weekend. And Canelo dominated a very faded Gennady Golovkin, I think, to cap off the trilogy. And that was the Guardian's headline. Canelo Alvarez dominates faded Gennady Golovkin to cap trilogy, is what they made their headline. And I think it's true. A unanimous points decision for Alvarez, who defended his WBC, WBA, WBO, and IBF titles at 168 pounds. And the world super middleweight champion, a comprehensive winner. Hints of Joshua Klitschko, I thought, as well. You know, a once great world champion, fighting a younger, more hungry warrior, 40 years old, when really, you know, people praised Joshua at the time, and there was always that elephant in the room, well, yeah, but he's fighting Klitschko, who's just about to retire right at the end of his career. And it sort of felt similar. I think from the first bell, aside from, I think it was rounds 9 and 10 when Alvarez had Canelo on the ropes, didn't he, at one point. Aside from those couple of rounds when he got back into the fight, I heard Steve Bunt say it on the radio that Golovkin just looked like he wanted each round to slip away, and he was unable to impose himself, especially in the first 7. So that was the fight. I think most could predict it. Canelo, like I said, dragged into it a little bit, but ultimately his power just saw him through. Before we talk about the scorecards, because I know you and I know you'll be desperate to touch on them, what did you make of the fight in general, Max? And surely now, my view is that Golovkin needs to retire.
Yeah, so I think, I don't want to say predictable. I don't want to say the fight was predictable, because it even defied my expectations in terms of every fight that I've seen Canelo have at super middleweight. He started off slowly. He's let the other person kind of come in on the scorecards in the early rounds, and he stepped them up in the latter. You know, you see that from any anytime he's campaigned heavier than middleweight, his stoppages and his knockouts, if they haven't been points, and they've been round 11s, round 12s. So I thought that we're going to see more of that and maybe a sharper start from Golovkin. And as as the older man with maybe not as much of, we know how much of a beast Golovkin is.
Yeah.
But at 40 years old, he's not going to have as much of an engine as Canelo does. So I thought he was going to kind of start off and start off more strong and kind of push his luck in the earlier rounds. But instead, yeah, I just think, I don't know if he struggled adjusting. I'm really not sure what it was. You can't say that he was just trying to download he's already been in there for a refresher. He knew exactly what Canelo was going to bring, but it's just a matter of knowing that and actually being able to, I want to say he's in a state, but in the state that he is in his condition right now.
Is that just natural? Is that just nature? I mean, age is cruel anyway, let alone in professional sport, and especially in boxing. You never lose the skill and ability, but you lose the instinctive edge. You lose your reaction time, and I think that's what age is, a bit of boxing especially.
Year-old, for the expectations I normally have as of a 40-year-old boxer, Golovkin still exceeds that. And I'm going to explain that later when we talk about his potential retirement. But I think he still looked sharp when he actually came along. And he actually, stuck it to Canelo. But we saw in the earlier rounds that he was giving away. Normally he would pull the trigger in certain instances. He looked too cautious. He looked too tentative. He was giving Canelo too much respect. Didn't want to throw the right hand because he was a bit worried the left hand might come over the top. The last two fights, he wasn't bothered about that. So I think we just saw a bit more hesitation from Golovkin in there. And that, I think that probably is age that has done that. But it might have just been, there's a lot of things.
Do you think it was the occasion? Do you think the third fight, the third of the trilogy?
Maybe. He's a fearless boxer, but we didn't see that level of fearlessness that we normally do from him. So they thought, we were just talking about how I haven't seen the Croft twins in 6 years. It's like 4 years is a long time. So Canelo has reached his peak in that time. I'm not sure if he's in his peak now because it wasn't his best performance. No. But I think that might also be down to Golovkin as well, making it hard for him. But I think he was just fighting to the level he had to on Saturday, Canelo. I think he was just doing what he needed to because he knew he just wanted to bury the hatchet and as you said, have a convincing, comprehensive win. But I think that Saturday night, there's only going to be one winner there.
Well, he didn't overexert himself, and I think one of the scorecards I think was pretty accurate. I think the 116 to 1112 was marginally more accurate, and it was a better reflection of the fight. But the other two, 115 to 113, I just thought was strange. Like, I don't understand how you can score a fight so badly, and we speak about this all the time. And as a real boxing expert, I wanted your view on it. Why were the scorecards so off?
Real boxing expert, is that the label now?
That's your label.
I love it. It's going in the bio. Yes, mate. I think you're spot on. 115 to 113. But isn't that just the narrative of this whole trilogy? Bad scoring. Isn't that what we've seen in the last two fights? I think if it went the other way, we can't even. I mean, we can be mad because Golovkin was nowhere near winning that fight. But, I mean, and to a lesser extent that Canelo was in the first fight when he, with the draw. But Canelo's been gifted with bad scoring. We can barely complain if Golovkin was to be in that fight as well. But I think he already was gifted with bad scoring because it was so generous to him. If I'm going to be generous, I'm giving him 3 rounds in that fight.
Really?
Really, he was competitive for the final 4 rounds, and I still think he lost 2 of them.
So
There's
rounds
no
what?
shame in that.
Rounds 9, 10, and 11. Rounds
Yeah,
9 or just rounds 9 and 10. I think I would have only given him 2.
yeah. From I would have given him round 9, and then I mean, mate, it was 4:45 in the morning. I'm not sure if it
Was
was
early.
10 or 11, but one of the two. I'm giving him 2 of those because that's, he started pulling the trigger a bit more. He was working nice with the left hand. He just wasn't putting them together like that was the thing. And Canelo came back, and he's never going to get Golovkin out of there. Oh, Golovkin can come back in 20 years and go 12 rounds with Canelo. Canelo's still not knocking him out at age 60. I promise you that. But as I was saying, he was doing what he needed to do to win. He was mixing it up nice to the body, to the head. Using his jab more than I'm actually used to seeing him use it, but that's something you have to as much as he should have as well. So I think those are a couple of the deciding factors there that made Canelo take control of that fight.
I think, like you said, I think that was exactly the fight Canelo needed. Just the ego boost to get him back on track. He still beat a massive name, but he did it very comfortably. He did hurt his hand. We'll get onto that in a minute. But I think in terms of recovering from that loss to Dimitri Bivol in May, at the same arena as well, would have been a big psychological thing. And I think it's just exactly the right timing, exactly what he needed, and at the right way, at his best as well. I think now Canelo only looks forwards. I think if there was any doubt over that Bivol fight, I think that's gone. I think he moves forwards now, and we mentioned him, Bivol. I think he'll be determined to go and put things right now because he is pound for pound better than Bivol. I don't think there's any doubting that. I don't think there's any doubting who the better boxer is, or in my mind, I don't think there is anyway. So I think when his hand heals, he can go and beat Bivol, who is a bigger guy, but I still think he can go and beat him.
You think Canelo would have him in the rematch?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what he needed. I think this is exactly the ego boost, exactly the softening of the blow that he needed to go and look. I know Bivol's bigger. I know it's a completely new challenge, and we'll talk about Chris Eubank and Conor Benn and the difference in weight classes and people's views on that in a bit. But I genuinely think psychologically this was massive for Canelo, absolutely huge.
All right, but physically, I can't see him beating Bivol just for fight. But mate, that is, as Troy Deeney says, the cojones to have that.
Listen, you heard it here first.
That.
You heard it on the Middlemen podcast. Canelo now has what he needs, I think, mentally, I think emotionally, to go and I've just dropped my phone, to go and to go and beat.
That's the passion.
The passion that is coming through right now, that the phone has dropped down the radiator somewhere. Like, that's going to be a job later. I genuinely think that he goes and wins that rematch. But that's a completely kind of different talking point. I think that the other sort of more relevant talking point to this fight, before we move on to Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, is his hand, and he did injure himself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can pinpoint one shot where it was. Kind of like the Davis fight, one of Tank's last fight. I think is Isaac Cruz, wasn't it? That he hurt his hand in as well. And I can't remember there being one specific punch where he would have done it. It might just be a culmination, like with Canelo, because he was having the output when he needed to. He was putting the punches on Golovkin, and that just shows how made of steel Golovkin is. That Canelo is hurting himself with that, but it might have been a thing in fight camp as well. I haven't heard. All I've heard is Canelo say that he needs surgery on it, right? So I don't know if or when it happened, if it's been a long-lasting one. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see where he goes from here. Obviously, he needs a timeout. He needs to recover. He needs that surgery. But I think for his career's sake, I think that the best bet is to stay at super middleweight. I don't know why he would give himself the problem of trying to rematch Bivol, but this is the thing, right?
pride, isn't it? It's
I'm
pride.
giving him. I'm talking about a safe. Exactly. I'm talking about a safe option for him right now, where he can go and beat super middleweights.
But there, yeah,
Because
but the greats don't do that. I think that's where he's conscious of. I think he's getting to that point now in his career where he's conscious of how he wants to be remembered, and I think that's why Joe Joyce is taking this fight with Parker, because it's a bigger and better fight, and I think he's a bit fed up of fighting these. No, I don't want to say lesser opponents, but in a lot of ways they are, and perhaps that's the big thing with Canelo as well. He wants that challenge, and he wants to go out at least having known that he tried to fight the bigger fighters. Maybe it's foolish as Chris Eubank Senior thinks about Chris Eubank Jr. going to fight Ben and cutting weight for that. And again, we'll get onto that, but maybe that's how he's thinking. I don't know.
yeah, no, what I was going to relate it to actually was one of the fighters that you didn't mention there. I think just like Joshua with his rematch, I think he's realized that he's got the biggest challenge, the hardest challenge. He's been given a puzzle that he can't figure out. So as a elite, you know, these boxing guys are wired differently. We need to remember this. They're not like a certain breed of them they will take the hardest fights and the one that they're most likely going to lose just to prove a point to themselves. And you can only commend that. That's the only thing you can, like, you know, how you can't criticize that, can you? People are gonna say, okay, he's ducking whoever at super middleweight. I think that's just absolute nonsense. I think he beats David Benavidez, beats Charlo, anyone who wants him at 168, apart from the light heavyweights, he smokes. I just think I see it on Twitter all the time, drives me insane. But at light heavyweight, I think Bivol was too much for him, but it'll be an interesting rematch. You know, he's found his form again, and he'll go on here, and we'll see what happens. I just didn't see enough from him in the first fight to tell me that, you know, he's gonna do something different in this Bivol fight. He needed adjustments, and if he can adjust, then that's his path to victory. You know, as we were talking about pride, about maybe a bit of ego, maybe his ego midway through the fight might not let him adjust. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, definitely, as you mentioned, Joyce and Parker there. I think that is exactly what Joe Joyce needed. He's been garnering names. Do you know what I mean? Daniel Dubois,
Yeah.
Carlos Takam to a lesser extent, but put on a good performance in that fight.
Christian
I think
Hamer.
he is just taking the step ups when they're coming. Yeah, exactly. And he needs these top names thick and fast, because the guy's in his 30s. You know, he's out no early 30s as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's like in his mid to late 30s. So he's in a mandatory position right now, and he needs to hurry it up if he wants a title shot in his career.
Well, that's it, and it's a perfect segue onto this fight on Saturday night with Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker, who lost to Anthony Joshua, by the way, didn't he, at the Principality in your stomping grounds, Max, in 2018. And I love Joe Joyce. I'm a massive Joe Joyce fan. He's not like Parker, where he comes in with entourages of Tyson Fury and a huge team. You know, Joe Joyce will come with a backpack and a pair of boxing gloves. And that's all he'll bring. That's the kind of guy Joyce is. He's got a degree in art or something along those lines. And I also think he's got the strongest, the toughest, and the best chin in British boxing. I think he's got a better chin than Tyson Fury, which is another big-ish claim, I suppose. But he's such an intelligent boxer as well, both inside the ring and outside the ring. And it baffles me how he's gone this far without having had any kind of world title fight. But like you said, whoever trumps in Manchester will be the mandatory challenger to Alexander Usyk. Joyce has a rematch clause, so there's that to think about as well. How do you think the fight's going to play out? Do you think Parker being trained by the best of our generation is a factor? Do you think him being there in Morecambe with Tyson Fury the last 18 months plays a part? How do you think this fight's going to go down? Because it's also not really a home fight because of the support that Joseph Parker will have, having been in Manchester or around the area for so long.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if it is going to be as 50-50 as the name suggests on paper, because especially with heavyweight fighting, it's physical. It's very physical, and I don't want to sound like I'm undermining or hating on Parker here. I think he's an excellent boxer. But I just think that I don't know if the years have run away from him, because I presume that he's actually younger than Joyce. But just think when you're looking at form and momentum right now, I think everything's pointing to Joyce. As you mentioned, the camp, the training, the preparation from Parker with Fury, that can only do him good, right? Like how are you gonna not develop in, with Sugar Hill Stewart and Tyson Fury in your corner? Of course you're gonna just get better at your game. But I think this is heavyweight boxing. It's big punch boxing. Parker's more of a cumulative boxer, and they've been good, volume punches in heavyweight boxing. But I don't think that style is what's gonna.
And he also knows how to win at the AO Arena in Manchester. He beat Hughie Fury there. He's beat Derek Chisora there. He's beat some big names in that arena, so he's got that as well. But I also think what he's got is a bit of a chip on his shoulder, to be honest. I think he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about losing to Anthony Joshua back in 2018 and losing to Dillian White. I think that's in his mind as well. I think this for him is, how can I get back to where I was? How can I try and force a rematch with AJ if he comes through the Tyson Fury fight? How can I try and get a rematch with someone like Dillian White? I think that's a big part of Joseph Parker's mentality as well coming into this one. And I think if he beats Joe Joyce, and from Joe Joyce's perspective, that's going to be incredibly hard to bounce back from. Similarly to AJ, if he loses to Fury, I don't see any way back for Anthony Joshua. And I would worry for Joe Joyce on that same kind of train of thought. If he loses this fight, where does he go from here? He's old. He's like Fraser Clark. If Fraser Clark loses a big fight, how do you bounce back from that? Ben Shalom can talk and promote him as much as he wants. I don't think he could. So I think that's another thing for Parker with the chip on his shoulder, and for Joyce, there's that element of I desperately need to win this fight.
Yeah, I think for the pair of them, it's must wins. It's a long road back to any form of title contention for the loser here. So I think almost as much confidence as they can going into this one. They need everything they can to make them, leave as a victor. I think Parker, he's always come across to me as a humble guy. I've seen his TikToks or his videos like through lockdown kept me going a bit. He's quite the personality, but I know what you mean. It's easy to develop these kind of chips on shoulders just in the environment that you're in. But mate, I think, like, as I said, it's a long road back for people. If Joyce loses, or even Parker, like the loser of that, and then say, I'm very skeptical about this, but say Joshua and Fury do throw down on December 3rd, and the loser of that, I think, the loser of both of those fights, whether it's Parker Fury or Parker Joshua or Joyce Fury, Joyce Joshua, there's still great matchups to be made, regardless of, just forget about titles for a sec. Forget about, their careers, where they should be going, rankings, all of that. Just possible to match up here. And I think you've got some great entertainment.
I think that's all anyone wants to see. And quickly, I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
we've touched on Eubank, Conor Benn, which it isn't happening until the 8th of October. But the story this week, and I just wanted to get your opinion on this, and it's similar to the Wanyeri story at Arsenal, and it's all about welfare of an athlete. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. needs to come down 3 pounds, which would be the lowest weight of his career, to fight Conor Benn, because he needs to get to 157 pounds, right? Chris Eubank says he's already lost one son and he doesn't want the other son's life to be in danger because of all this weight changing. Just very quickly, I wanted your view on it. What do you think?
I think Eubank Senior is well within his right to have that, to feel that way, to have that sentiment. We can't just ignore how he's feeling about this. This is a father who's lost a son and doesn't want to see his other one hurt again. That's, I can't even imagine of being in that headspace. I would be so worried. I would not. So he's well within his right to feel that way. What he's not within his right to do is try and cancel this card and try and stop this fight from happening. Because as the Sauerland said, I think it was Carla said, we have a contract with Eubank Jr. We don't have a contract with Senior. Like, we can understand his concern. That's okay. Be concerned as a parent. Even try and pull him out if that's what you want to do. But I would also respect your son's decision, and respect the contract and respect the business side of boxing. Balance to have. But I think we really need to try and empathize with Eubank Senior here and notice that he's going to be very concerned for his boy. But listen, I don't know who is really getting the tail end of the short end of the stick with the weight situation. It was always going to be a hard one to make, because both of them have fought at 20 pounds apart at one stage in their career. Eubank Jr. fighting at super middleweight. That's 21 pounds heavier than welter. Eubank Jr. is doing all this art of deception stuff with his KFC buckets
and the birthday cake.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens. They're both professionals at the end of the day. I think they'll both make weight. We'll just see on the night who's been affected more from it.
The face-off with Adi Oladipo as well is fantastic, and you should go and watch that. And speaking about people growing, we saw him back when we were working for GB at the Olympic qualifiers, and how far he's come is just incredible.
Yeah,
and very well
to watch his journey.
Amazing, really inspirational, and very, very well put as well. And I think you have to empathize. It's a hard word to say. I think you have to feel for Chris Eubank and be with him and appreciate that point of view as well. He must be going through an incredibly difficult part of life right now. And back to,
sure.
I touched on 1 year at Arsenal, and we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I just wanted to say, I think Arteta got it spot on with the 15-year-old playing the other night. I know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding it. I think if he's ready, then play him in any sport. If you're ready, there have been tennis champions that have played and won at 15. Look at Emma Raducanu. I know she's a bit older. Jude Bellingham was 16 when he got his chance. If you're ready, then play. So we'll end it on that. Thank you very, very much for listening to the Middlemen podcast. And thank you for having us back. It's brilliant to be back. And I've loved catching up with you, Max. So all the best, everyone. And we'll be back with you very soon.
Yeah, back with you sooner than we have been. No monthly breaks from here on out. We're looking to see this year out with a lot of consistency, and it's been not a weight off my shoulders, but whatever you want to call it, to be back talking sport, my main man. So thank you for listening in, for tuning in, guys. We appreciate your consumption of our content every time. So we'll be back. There'll be more of us for you to listen to for the rest of this year. So thank you very much.